Hello, everyone, and welcome to the program. I'm Sean Okimalia, Channels Television's global headquarters in Lagos, Nigeria. The 2019 election is still here with us, considering the number of supplementary elections yet to be conducted by INEC in about 6 states or so, where elections were declared inconclusive. Supplementary elections will hold on the 23rd of March in Rivers State. Governorship elections were suspended there. The way forward on that is yet to be determined by the electoral umpire. The first phase of elections, that is the presidential and the National Assembly elections, are receiving a series of court-related attention. Tonight, we shall be discussing the controversies and getting some legal insight to the contending issues. I have joining me one of Nigeria's senior lawyers, Chief Robert Clarke. He joins us here in our Lagos studio. Thank you so much for coming on the program tonight.
Always my pleasure.
Let me first and foremost ask you, supplementary elections, what does the law say about supplementary elections? We're going to be having about 6 or so on the 23rd.
Where situations arise that supplementary elections have to be held, such events are called supplemental because the main election has not been concluded. And when INEC feels, and it's solely within the discretion of INEC, that an election has not been completed to the stage of INEC declaring the results of such election, then a new date is given for whatever reasons INEC must have given for the, non-conclusion of the election, to say, okay, because of A, B, C, D, we are no longer in a position to declare results of election just held. And because of this reason, we're going to hold supplemental elections at such and such a date. It is a lawful and legal position taken by INEC.
So a lot of people are challenging it that, look, elections, I'm very certain that it is even a constitutional issue, not even an electoral act issue, where elections need to be concluded on a second ballot, because the Constitution also envisages that election may not be concluded on the first ballot because of certain reasons, because of the issues of the spread and issues of some other issues. But as it stands right now, a lot of Nigerians may not understand the reasons why elections are getting to the stage of supplementary elections. But politicians, what we are seeing today as regarding the debate over which state has a supplementary and which state does not have a supplementary election. But from your observation, why do you think we have as much as 6 supplementary elections to be concluded after the 2019 elections?
You see, if I may say this, elections all over the world and all over the civilized world, in any democracy, you will always find 1 or 2 hitches. For instance, in India today, which is the largest democracy in the world, you always have violence, you always have mayhem, till today. In America today, people will not be surprised, or will be surprised, depending on which divide you are, that rigging still goes on in America. Elections are being challenged as I'm talking now in America. So it's not unnatural. What I'm just trying to now prove is that in Nigeria, we have taken election as a do-or-die matter. And why? Because of the pecuniary dividends that politicians gain from it. And when you turn an event into a do-or-die matter, definitely there will be many, many hitches created by ourselves, because they are not unnatural things. They are things that have been created by the politicians or their agents. So I'm not surprised.
Let's look at what has become of Rivers State, for example. What are your thoughts about the Rivers election? It's been suspended, though the commission came out with some statement. But let me get your thoughts. You've stood in to defend governors and governorship candidates in tribunal matters. For Rivers State, it's being a recurring decima, isn't it? That is either an issue of violence or issue of elections never concluded at first ballot due to disruption issues.
You see, Rivers State is a very peculiar place. And it became so, not because of any other reason, but because of this 1999 Constitution. Years before 1999, Rivers was a very peaceful place. I was the sole counsel to NRC in 1993. I was privileged to have canvassed the whole of this country as legal to Tommy Kimi and the NRC. And Rivers State was one of the most peaceful places. It's because the Constitution is not the one we are now doing. And what is wrong with this Constitution? It's a winner-take-all Constitution, where the governor of the state is all in all. He controls the power, he controls the purse, he controls everything. And when you find a solution, a situation like that, and people are vying, and they have seen what their predecessors they have been doing with money, definitely the lust for money, the lust for power, all combined together to give you a mayhem situation. Rivers State has just turned into a new area, and it's not because of the type of people there, but because of the type of leadership both sides have. Both sides, you see, on one you cannot say, oh, these are bad people, these are the good people. On the other side, you cannot say this is the good one. All of them are bad because they are all greedy people who are looking for money and who are looking for power.
Look at what INEC said in its press release on the 15th of March 2019. And a third paragraph of the statement did say, consequent upon the foregoing, the Commission expresses its displeasure with the role played by some soldiers and armed gangs in Rivers State, disrupting the collation process and attempting to subvert the will of the people. What's your take?
Well, as a lawyer, I do not just pick on statements and comment on them, except I have facts. But this is an opinion of INEC, and the source of this opinion, there is a presumption that it must have had enough reason to have made such a declaration. But as I said, it is nothing to surprise any of us. Even before the elections in Rivers State, was it not last year, when, you know, just a little bit after 2015, when one of the parties was having a rally and there were gunshots, and I remembered one of your reporters. So it's nothing new. What INEC is saying here may be the truth. There are many, gangsters camouflaging in army uniforms. There are many also soldiers, but I am happy because the military have made a statement to that they are going to set up an inquiry to see whether that statement affects any of their military men.
Let me take you to the presidential election. The PDP is challenging it, though they've come out to say, look, INEC is not allowing us access because they got a court order to get access into the materials used for the elections. But in 2003, we saw elections being challenged. 2007, we saw elections being challenged. In 2011, we saw presidential election being challenged. In 2015, the the runner-up in the election did not challenge. That's Goodluck Jonathan. But this time around, the PDP, the same party, is challenging this election. Generally, from what you see, a lot of some senior lawyers have come out to say, look, the PDP should not challenge it. What's your position?
Look, let's be honest. The criteria for challenging an election is threefold. When you go to an election petition, you must first show that the elections was riddled with malpractice. After bringing out the malpractices, you must show that those malpractices affected the result declared by INEC. Now look at the presidential election. Nobody, and let's be honest about it because the facts are there, nobody can challenge the amount of people who voted for Buhari in the north because that's a track record. In 2003, Buhari beat any other candidate in the north. In 2007, he beat any other candidate in the north. In 2011, he beat any other candidate in the north. 2015. So in 2019, when you look at his performance, there is a footprint. The differential in the number of votes may vary. 12 million, 11 million, 13 million, 9 million, whatever way you want to put it, nobody will be alarmed with the number of votes he has gathered in this 2019. And look at the differential in vote. Almost 4 million votes between him and Atiku. If I were Atiku's lawyer, I would have told him, Mr. Vice President, Mr. President, sir, it's not easy to challenge an election that has given somebody 4 million votes. Because when you look at the 5 states and the Igbo-speaking states, the totality of all the 5 states there, it's not up to the half 2 million of what, not to talk of the 4 million. If you say there were malpractices in all the south and eastern states, even you add Cross River State to it, the difference in votes, if they are to be subtracted, is not up to 4 million. And the bottom line is that if you can prove conclusively there are malpractices and they are deducted from the votes of your opponent, then you will now say, oh, you should be the winner. But look at the margin, 4 million.
So it's Herculean to say...
It's a Herculean task. And I don't know why in Nigeria, and as I said, because the post of the president, he has all the powers next to God. And it's a do-or-die battle in Nigeria between politicians.
So, I mean, those senior lawyers advising Atiku Abubakar not to challenge this, they have a ground for it.
Well, I'm not speaking for any other lawyer. If I am briefed, I hold it as a right to advise my client. And how do I advise him? I make him know the facts. That, look, you cannot set aside any of the votes in the north. If you say it's undervoting, how many people can you bring out who have... maybe you get about 500,000 in the north that you can set aside.
But can they also challenge on the premise that they say in some areas where card readers were supposed to be used were not used? Considering the Electoral Act that has not been effective, well, the amendment to it, although we had the 2015, which Goodluck Jonathan signed, but if you look at those premises, they said they have body cameras to show that the elections were rigged. Are those tenable? Are those enough?
As I told you, let us even admit card readers were not used. You still have to bring evidence to show how many card readers were not used that ought to have been used. What I'm saying is that at the bottom line, the evidence you are going to proffer in respect of card readers, I can bet you can't get up to 1 million votes. And if you identify those 1 million votes, you still have to deduct it from Buhari's, which is 4 million. Where does it take it?
So it's almost an impossible task.
I'm not saying it's impossible.
It's almost.
It is almost.
So, I mean, if you look at the history of challenging presidential election result, there was one that was very close to it where the Supreme Court judges were at almost
4-3.
4-3 at the time.
I remember that. And I remember that actually the crux of that petition was that they printed new ballot papers after the originals finished. And unfortunately, they gave each ballot paper the same number. And so 3 of the members of the seminar said, look, that is enough. That is enough to nullify the election. Because you cannot have 1 million, 2 million votes mainly on one number, you know. But toss it up or here. I don't speak for the panel. They must have seen merit in not disrupting the election.
Let me bring in, we're benefiting from the experience of the senior lawyer chief, Robert Clarke, one of the most senior lawyers that we have in the land. So it's an honor having you talk to us tonight. Some closing moments with senior advocate of Nigeria, Chief Robert Clarke. With some of the issues on the ground, PDP saying, look, they did not allow us access. He has indeed criticized the reason why the party went through that route of going to the court, that they do have a legal standing and a statutory right to access those materials. What are you thinking?
You see, the problem is in Imo State. It's a problem that has never occurred in Nigeria, where after INEC has declared a winner, INEC is now turning around to say, no, our declaration was made under duress. It has never happened in Nigeria, and it's going to create a very, very fine legal proceedings in court. Number one, nobody can challenge an election except through an election tribunal. This matter has not gone to the election tribunal, and that is the only forum that can deal with election matters, not any other court. So running to this court or that court for an order makes no sense, since that court has no jurisdiction to challenge the proceedings in an election. Now, the other point is this. INEC must be very, very careful here. When they made a declaration, under the law, there is a presumption of regularity attached to that statement. That is what the law says. That is what the law of evidence says. Now, after having said, I declare you as the winner of the senatorial seat, you now, and that the final stamp in law as to the last stage of an election. Now, how can you, the same person, after having declared, now again say, no, that declaration was made under duress? Who has certified that statement to be made under duress? Was that a finding of fact by you? Was that a finding of a tribunal? Was that a... No, no, no.
So the law could not defend someone who has a gun to his head and declaring the result?
Look, the point here is, was a declaration made? Yes, it was made. Under what circumstances should have been looked into before a statement was made by INEC that I declare you the winner. So you can now see that the only proper fora to stop that declaration is to go to the tribunal, since you have already declared him. Whether by false pretenses, whether by duress, you have made a declaration.
Okay. Let me get your final thoughts now, Chief Robert Clarke, on the electoral process. How this election panned out in 2019. The Electoral Act amendment has been presented to the president, which he said that he's declining assent because of certain reasons. Going forward, what must be done? What is one thing that must be done, quickly if you tell us this, to fix our electoral process and deal with some of the issues that are raised?
You see, when the president, as alleged, failed to assent to that bill, maybe, I'm not speaking for him, IT matters in Nigeria are not for illiterates. I can assure you that as old as I am now, I don't know all the intricacies on my telephone, mobile phone. Now, if you are going to bring in a form of voting in Nigeria that deals with electronic matters, you need to synthesize the public. Now, my advice is that in future, like now that we have an election in 2023, if we want to amend the electoral process to make sure that all election matters are done under IT, it's now, this year, this new parliament that should start work on that, so that after a year that you have passed the bill, now INEC will have the time to go. Look, About 60% of Nigerians live in rural areas. How many people know about, IT matters? So I don't blame the president that it was too late in time to bring this idea in, and it may constitute chaos during the election. So if you want, nobody is saying we should not, amend. But please make sure that you give sufficient notice.
Okay. Chief Robert Clarke, it looks like one would dream of having you talk on some of these issues every day.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Thank you so much, Chief Robert Clarke,
It's a
as an
pleasure.
advocate of Nigeria, for coming on tonight.
It's a pleasure.